Well, it seems like I spoke too soon last video because, well, Sledgehammer Games decided to push out that shotgun nerf that they teased literally the same day that I talked about the Buck and Slug nerf. This nerf was posted in their blog, and it says, a balanced pass on all shotguns, affecting range, pellet spread, hipfire penalty, and more. What is more? I don't really know. It's kind of vague, and I wish to be a little bit more descriptive. So how is the nerf? Well, shotguns are still strong. Don't worry, they're still pretty much really good, but it seems like they're just a bit less forgiving. The shotguns are still really strong, but more specifically, the combat shotgun is still kind of overpowered. They did fix the notorious build shown by Ace, but something that has gone unnoticed by 90% of the players will basically revert the combat shotgun back to its one pellet killing self. But I'll get into that later in the video, so check out the timestamps below if you want to jump to that specific part of the video. But first, I'm going to go over sort of everything else that I can notice that's changed, but trust me, it's worth staying for. So let me talk about the nerfs. First, Buck and Slug, because that's really one of the things that got a significant change for the most part. There was a supposed nerf to Buck and Slug the other day, which I covered in a video, but that didn't really change anything at all that I could tell. But now, with this particular one, I can confirm that there were actually some nerfs in a more substantial way. First off, if you notice in-game, it says -4 pellets now instead of 2, so that's more in line with what I saw in-game. It's not really anything crazy, it's just actually now doing what it says it does more accurately. One thing I did notice in-game when I was shooting at a wall is that there seems to be 4 pellets now and a slug instead of 3, because before it was pretty consistently showing sort of a triangle formation with the pellets and then sort of a slug in the middle of that, but now it looks like it's more random spread, with the slug kind of also being a little bit more random, it seems like. That's just something I noticed, and it doesn't really affect it too much, but it is a little bit less forgiving, but we'll get into that soon. Getting stomach one-shot kills at crazy ranges isn't really possible anymore, and for the double barrel and the combat shotgun, in order to get the best range one-shot kills with it, you need to be hitting the chest level, and even then, they're not that amazing. If you remember the revolving shotgun, which had insane range, you could hit stomach shots past 20 meters and get one-shot kills. That is no longer the case, but for all the shotguns, Buck and Slug now has the same one-shot kill as the base gun with 2 exceptions. First, the head will pretty much always be a one-shot kill with Buck and Slug, with most of the shotguns, I think all of them, at any decent range, but they all eventually drop off at some point for, each shotgun is different. And second, the combat and the double barrel can actually still get a longer one-shot kill as long as you're hitting that chest area. One thing I noticed was that the stomach body multiplier doesn't let you get kills past 10 meters on the combat shotgun and past 7.5 meters on the double barrel. Notice these are the 2 base one-shot kill ranges of each of those respective guns. But on these 2, the combat and the double barrel, if you aim at chest level, the chest multiplier seems to kick in with that slug, and you can extend those one-shot ranges to about 14 meters for the combat and then 15 meters for the double barrel with no attachments. That's fair considering these are the base guns and the aim down sights time is so slow. You do have to be very accurate with Buck and Slug, and I think it's totally fine for these base ranges. The revolving shotgun is really the shotgun that got the short end of the stick with the Buck and Slug though, because it doesn't really get any range boosts at all. It does get that infinite headshot range, seemingly infinite, but the combat and the double barrel are still pretty good and definitely more balanced now, but the Gracie Auto is also really good with a surprisingly strong 2-shot kill range. That's possible only really because of the slug. So I recommend it on all of the shotguns now except really the revolving shotgun, and even then, because of that really slow aim down sights time, it can be kind of hard to use. On the revolving shotgun, you can use pretty much packed powder or Buck and Slug. It doesn't really matter because all you really need for great range is the big barrel with the 12 gauge ammo type. That's really the key for it. And for some reason, attachments don't really help much after those 2 are equipped on that gun. So as long as you have those 2 attachments, you'll be getting great one-shot kills with the revolving shotgun if you aim well. Other than that, no ammo types really got affected from what I can tell. It doesn't seem like any other changes for the big ones. And it seems like no base guns got affected, at least on any ranges. They did mention there were hipfire penalties, but to be honest, I can't really tell what they're talking about with the main shotguns. The shotguns are still really rewarding with only a pellet or 2 hitting the target, which is kind of the big issue I've had. The revolving shotgun on its own, as long as you're in that one-shot range, usually all it takes is a pellet or 2. It's the same with the combat shotgun, which is a bit better now than it was, but it's still too easy to get these absurd hipfire kills. specifically with the sawed-off barrel. One other balance factor I noticed is that the hipfire seems to be a lot tighter now for the sawed-off barrel specifically. I don't really have any pre-patch pictures to show you, but if you look at it now in game, and if you've used them before, the difference is pretty obvious. Other than that, I haven't noticed any significant hipfire changes to the reticle, the size, but I don't have pre-patch pictures, so I can't really be super specific about it. I know I'm falling short here, but the reason that this is good though is because how good some of the sawed-off barrels were and they increased damage, you didn't really need to hit maybe more than 2 pellets to get a kill with an enormous wide spread. So for the first time ever, a wider spread was a good thing in Call of Duty, which is weird. But now it's tighter, so you have to be a bit more accurate. And also with the combat shotgun, specifically that build that Exclusive Ace showed off with packed powder and the sawed-off barrel, no longer gets 1 pellet kills at 7 meters, it seems like. It's a little bit more unforgiving. You can still hit fire and kill at that range pretty easily, which is still kind of a problem, but it's slightly less forgiving. Don't get me wrong though, it's still nasty and it doesn't take as many pellets, which is a big issue for me. Since we're on the talk about the combat shotgun, now I can really mention that insane build that is easily what needs to be adjusted. In fact, I showed it off in one of my last videos. The 12 gauge ammo attachment here is really the key. In case you didn't know, the combat shotgun is by default chambered with 16 gauge shells, not 12. So people often overlook the last magazine attachment because it's 12 gauge, right? And it's only 5 shells. So they usually end up going for that 10 round drum mag that's chambered in 16 gauge. Well, why would you want to use the 12 gauge with only 5 shells? This is why. Yeah, so that wasn't nerfed. In fact, this is absurdly overpowered. I really think so. Players don't even have to be accurate at a range like this. 12 meters and getting 1 pellet kills, that's just not acceptable to me. You need to be aimed down sights or at least have more pellets hitting, but this is just kind of overpowered. It just is, and I hate to say that, but yeah, this does need a nerf. The sawed-off barrel and the 12 gauge ammo type is the problem now, and I'm bringing attention to it so that Sledgehammer Games can tune it accordingly, but this is my biggest problem so far with the balance patch, was that it didn't touch this. Also, the aim down sights one-shot kill, it's really at least 20 meters if you're hitting that torso shot area, but if you aim high enough and the slug and the pellets hit that neck and chest area, you can absolutely snipe people. It is entirely possible. It really is. It's hard to do with that aim down sights time, but it is possible. I don't have access yet to specific damage numbers because I don't have a way to do Codcaster yet, but when I do, I want to dissect damages and kind of figure out how pellet damage works. Overall though, I have to say, I don't really feel satisfied with the nerfs, and it's mostly because of the combat shotgun. The other shotguns were never really much of an issue, only on smaller maps, and I would say that's because of spawns and also because of gung-ho. Those are two, I think, more glaring issues rather than the shotgun itself. To be fair though, I do need to play with the other shotguns a bit more. There are some crazy builds I can think of, but if they're really overpowered, that's tough to say. But I played against someone using the shield on their back the other day, and they had the combat shotgun, and they never aimed. And despite me being accurate and hitting my revolving shotgun shots pretty well, it didn't matter. That thing was always killing me in one shot with no pellets needed, really. And even though it's a bit better now, it's still too strong. And then there's the 12 gauge attachment with the sawed-off barrel that just really throws it off. The other shotguns are good. I think they're in a good spot, but I don't think they got really hit hard either. So if you were expecting all these other shotguns to be like crap now, they didn't really change. I think the Akimbo double barrel shotgun is still really strong as well. I need to play with them more to see if I think they need to be toned down, but in all honesty, I think it's more of a problem with gung-ho in the small maps and spawns rather than the shotguns themselves. But again, the combat is the big culprit here, and I hope it does get a little bit more tuning, because with this ammo type, it's just a little too much, and it's still, even without it, with the sawed-off barrel and packed powder and stuff, it just feels a little too forgiving, and I don't really like that. I want my shotgun to be more satisfying with, you aiming down sights and being accurate. Make it to where it's like the Model 680, where it felt so incredibly inconsistent if you're hip firing, but when you aim down sights, it's so much better. I feel like that's how you need to be with a shotgun, unless you're like 5 feet away. But that's just my opinion, and I want to know, what do you guys think of these nerfs? What do you think of that secret combat shotgun attachment and that combination specifically? Do you think they got hit hard? Do you think they got hit not enough? Do you think the combat shotgun is still overpowered? But with all that being said, I want to see you guys in the next video.